Welcome to RichTrybe. Today, we're diving deep into the ultimate roadmap for wealth. This is our beginner's guide to reaching a seven-figure net worth. We're going to look at the exact strategies and honestly, the psychological shifts it really takes to go from absolute zero to a $20 million fortune. Whoa, hold on a second. I kind of need to stop you right there. Look, it's super easy for someone who already has money to sit here and talk about millions, but can a regular, average guy actually become a millionaire? Or is this just, another one of those internet pipe dreams? That is exactly the skepticism we need to tackle today. But what if I told you that the hardest, most grueling part of wealth building isn't making your first million at all? The hardest part is simply making your first $100,000. If you can just figure out how to cross that specific threshold, your path to a million actually becomes mathematically inevitable. So you're going to want to stick around to the end, because we're going to break down exactly how you build that initial wealth and what actually happens to your life when you hit 5, 10, and even $20 million. All right, well, you definitely have my attention. So the first crucial milestone, crossing $100,000. Why is that such a magical number? I mean, when you're an average earner starting from nothing, or worse, starting way below zero with student debt, saving up 100 grand feels completely impossible. Right, so the crucial point here is the math, and really the psychology behind this exact number. When you are first starting out, you are constantly battling inflation, regular living expenses, and debt. Your money isn't working for you yet. You are literally doing all the heavy lifting yourself. But at $100,000, you hit this critical inflection point. This is where the sheer power of compound interest finally begins to accelerate your wealth in a truly meaningful way. Think about it like this. A 10% return on $10,000 is only $1,000. It doesn't really move the needle, right? But a 10% return on $100,000, that's $10,000. Suddenly, your investments are basically generating the equivalent of a part-time minimum wage job and doing it completely passively. That completely shifts the game. Starting out is just filled with these daunting psychological and practical barriers. It really feels like shoveling snow while it's still snowing. But crossing that 100K line, the snow stops and compound interest acts like a giant snowplow for you.
Okay, I get the math of compound interest, but practically speaking, I can't just save my way to 100 grand by skipping my morning latte. What is the actual tangible engine I use to build that wealth?
Exactly. You need an engine. So let's talk about the real estate engine and building tangible wealth. To go from almost nothing to a millionaire, the absolute best wealth-building vehicle for the average person is real estate. We are talking specifically about building tangible wealth through rental properties. This isn't about getting lucky picking a stock. This is a proven, systematic business model. And the reason real estate is so incredibly powerful is that it builds wealth in multiple directions all at once. You buy a cash-flowing rental property. Over time, that property appreciates in value. But simultaneously, your tenants are paying rent every month, which pays down your mortgage loan. So you are gaining equity from the market going up and the debt going down.
Okay, let me interrupt you right there. That sounds fantastic on paper, but again, I'm an average guy. How on earth do I come up with a massive 20% down payment to buy an investment property? I definitely don't have $50,000 just sitting in my checking account.
That is literally the most common roadblock people hit, but it's totally solvable. You don't always need a traditional 20% down payment. Real estate investors use creative strategies to get in the game. For instance, you can use house hacking, where you buy a duplex with an FHA loan for just 3.5% down, live in one half, and have your neighbor's rent cover your mortgage. Or you can bring in investment partners who have capital but no time. You can raise private money. But the absolute most explosive strategy for a beginner with limited capital is a little something called the BRRRR method. Scaling with the BRRR method to explode your portfolio? Okay, BRRR, like you're freezing cold. What does that acronym actually mean, and how does it help a beginner scale up their wealth without just running out of cash? Yeah, it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. It really is the ultimate portfolio exploder. Here is how it works in practice. Step 1, you buy a distressed, rundown property well below market value. Step 2, you rehab it. Fix the kitchen, paint the walls, clean it up. This forces the value of the home to jump significantly. Step 3, you rent it out to a great tenant. Now, step 4 is where the magic happens. You refinance the property with a bank based on its new, higher value. So imagine you buy a house for $80,000, put $20,000 into repairs, and then it appraises for $150,000. The bank gives you a new loan on that $150,000, allowing you to pull your original 100 grand right back out. And step 5, you repeat. You take that exact same initial chunk of money and use it to buy your next property. You are literally recycling your initial capital over and over.
Wait a minute. pulling cash out, doing all these renovations, that sounds like there is a ton of risk involved. What if the housing market dips? What's the biggest danger here?
The golden rule of real estate perfectly addresses that exact fear. You make your money when you buy. If you learn how to value properties and you only offer a price that guarantees a deep discount, you have almost nothing to fear. You aren't sitting around hoping for the market to go up. You are locking in your profit on day one because you bought it for way less than it's worth.
Okay, hitting your first million, the real timeline. I see the mechanics. I recycle my capital using the BRRR method. But give it to me straight, no fluff whatsoever. What does the actual timeline look like from being totally broke to actually hitting that first million? I love this question because people really need realistic expectations. Phase 1 is literally just getting back to broke. For young professionals or anyone with heavy student loans, just hitting a $0 net worth is a massive victory that can take anywhere from years 1 through 3. Phase 2 is the grind to that first $100,000, which usually takes up to year 7. But watch what happens next. Because of that compound interest and real estate equity we talked about earlier, Phase 3, hitting $500,000, happens much faster, usually between years 7 and 12. And finally, Phase 4, crossing the millionaire mark, typically lands between years 12 and 15. It absolutely takes patience, but it works. So let's talk about the ultimate wealth mindset. $5 to $10 million. 12 to 15 years to hit the million. That changes your life, obviously. But earlier, you mentioned hitting $5, $10, or even $20 million. How does life actually change when you push past that first million and enter the realm of the ultra-wealthy? Now, what's really interesting here is the massive psychological shift that happens. At $1 million, you have financial security, sure, but you still need heavy discipline. You can't just quit your job and buy a super yacht. Your money has to last. But at 5 to 10 million, a quiet, profound confidence really settles in. You shift into a true abundance mindset. At 5 million, depending on how you're invested, your portfolio can safely generate $150,000 to $300,000 a year in completely passive income. That is double the median American household income, and you don't have to work a single day for it. Making $300,000 a year completely passively is kind of hard to even wrap my head around. What does that actually look like on, say, a random Tuesday? It looks like the complete absence of everyday financial anxiety. You go to the grocery store and you buy the expensive organic blueberries without even glancing at the price tag. You just toss them in the cart. If your roof leaks and it's a $7,000 repair, it's just a minor administrative task, not a life-altering crisis. You can even make a $50,000 investment mistake and it doesn't ruin your life. You upgrade your flights to first class with zero guilt, and you order Wagyu steak or Toro sashimi whenever you feel like it. The scarcity mindset entirely dissolves. I do have to ask, though, does having $10 million ruin your relationships? People must treat you differently when they know you're that rich, right?
It definitely shifts your social dynamics, for sure. As a decamillionaire, people can be way quicker to judge your actions, and they certainly aren't sympathetic if you have a bad day. So you do naturally become a bit more guarded. But the upside is incredible. You no longer have to maintain fake superficial relationships just because someone holds sway over your career. You have the ultimate freedom to cut toxic ties and deepen genuine bonds with people who truly do not care about your money at all.
Now, before we reveal the absolute pinnacle of this journey, the $20 million Decamillionaire endgame, make sure you subscribe to RichTrybe channel, like, comment, and share. We are building a massive community of future millionaires, and we really want you in the tribe. Let us know down in the comments which milestone you are currently working towards.
All right, I'm subscribed. Now take me to the finish line. Legacy and wealth protection, the 20 million tier. What happens when you beat the boss level? What happens when you actually hit $20 million? At 20 million, you have effectively won the financial lottery. You can generate $1 million a year in almost risk-free income. But the game entirely flips from making wealth to protecting it. The biggest pitfalls at this extreme level are neglecting tax efficiency, which can frankly bleed your net worth dry. Poor estate planning means the government could take half your wealth in probate when you pass away. You also have to aggressively diversify out of risky ventures and into much safer assets. Preserving your fortune basically becomes a full-time job. But the most beautiful shift at 20 million is that your material desires actually start to shrink. You realize you don't need a sixth car or an even larger mansion. You realize that the real luxury in life isn't stuff. It's time, health, and relationships. You begin to view your massive wealth not as a tool for your own consumption, but as a powerful tool for leverage and global impact. Wow, that is a profound way to look at it. It really stops being about you and starts being about what you leave behind. Exactly. And that is why I want to leave you and everyone watching with this final question.
When you build this wealth, what institutions or causes will outlive you? Who can you actually help with this abundance? Use real estate, master the BRR method, grind to hit that first 100K and build your millions. But never forget that true wealth is ultimately about the legacy you leave behind. Thanks for hanging out with us and keep building your milestones.